Lieutenant Park had seen many terrible things in her 3 years working at Orbital Station Meridian. This station was the last human outpost before the lawless fringe sectors, where no government had power and criminals ruled. She had watched smugglers escape justice. She had seen pirates attack innocent ships. She had even witnessed a small war between two alien species over mining rights to an asteroid. But nothing in her life had prepared her for what she was about to see at the slave market. The mission seemed simple enough when Fleet Command gave it to her team. Go to space, pretend to be independent traders, find evidence that the Dominion was selling illegal bioweapons, come back home, simple reconnaissance work. His team was small but capable. Sergeant was a large man with quick reflexes and a calm mind. He had served with for 2 years and she trusted him completely. Tech Specialist Lee was younger, barely 25, but she could hack into any computer system in the galaxy. Together, the three of them had completed dozens of dangerous missions. They arrived at the slave market dressed as traders. Their ship carried fake cargo manifests and fake identities. The market itself was built inside a hollowed-out asteroid that floated in the darkness between star systems. It was massive. 17 levels of platforms and walkways, all filled with the most horrible sight had ever witnessed. Slaves, thousands of them. Beings from dozens of different species walked past in chains. The chains were made of a special metal that blocked neural signals, making it impossible for the prisoners to use any mental abilities. Some of the slaves were tall and thin. Others were short and covered in fur. Some had 4 arms. Others had no arms at all. But they all shared the same empty look in their eyes, the look of creatures who had lost all hope. The slavers walked among them like farmers inspecting cattle. They were an ancient species. Their bodies were pale and stretched long, with arms that reached almost to the ground. They wore expensive fabrics of gold and silver, showing off their wealth. They called out prices in the common galactic language, their voices high and sharp like breaking glass. "Keep moving," said through their private communication channel. His voice was tight with anger. "We are not here for this. We have a mission." Knew he was right. They were here to find evidence of bioweapons. They were not here to free slaves. They did not have the power to free slaves. 3 humans against an entire station would be suicide. But her feet had stopped moving. On the auction platform ahead, a group of aliens were being pushed into position by guards. Recognized the species immediately. They were. She had studied at the academy. They were a proud species with a long history. Their bodies were tall and humanoid, covered in blue skin that glowed with bioluminescent patterns. These patterns changed color based on their emotions. Bright blue meant happiness. Dark purple meant anger. Dim, almost invisible patterns meant despair. The on the platform had patterns that were barely visible at all. 40 units, a auctioneer screamed at the crowd. 40 units, prime laborers already broken, no training needed. Felt sick to her stomach. They were famous for their fierce independence. They refused to join any galactic alliance, including humanity's united fleet. They kept to themselves on their distant worlds and wanted nothing to do with other species. To see them here, in chains, with their spirits completely destroyed, was almost too much to bear. She was about to force herself to turn away when one of the captives raised its head. The face that looked back at her maid's blood turned to ice. It was not a face, not completely. The skin had the blue color of the cheekbones had luminescent patterns tattooed or grafted onto them. The bone structure had been changed somehow, made slightly different from a normal human skull. But the eyes were dark brown and unmistakably human, and those eyes met eyes with desperate, burning recognition. She knew that face. She had grown up with that face. She had cried for months when she was told that face was dead. She whispered. The name came out of her mouth before she could stop it. Her brother, her older brother Park, who had been her hero when she was a little girl, who had taught her to ride a bicycle and to swim and to never give up no matter how hard things got, who had left Earth 7 years ago on a colony ship called the Bright Horizon, heading for a new world in the frontier. The colony ship had vanished 3 months into its journey. 3,000 passengers, 3,000 souls, all gone, no wreckage, no distress signal, nothing. Had been 19 years old when she received the news. She remembered falling to her knees in her dormitory room at the academy. She remembered screaming until her throat was raw. She remembered the memorial service where they honored all the passengers who had died. But had not died. He was here, right here, standing on a slave auction platform in space, his body modified to look like an alien, his wrists bound in neural-dampening chains. He was alive. Their eyes stayed locked together for only a moment, but in that moment saw everything. She saw recognition, she saw shock, she saw desperate hope, and she saw fear. Fear that she would do something stupid, fear that she would get herself killed trying to save him. Then a guard shoved back into line with the other prisoners, and the moment was broken. Sold, the auctioneer screamed. To the mining consortium, 40 units sold. Guards began pushing the prisoners off the platform. Looked back over his shoulder one last time, his modified face twisted with emotion. Then he was gone, swallowed by the crowd of slavers and buyers. Stood frozen in place. Her heart was beating so fast she thought it might explode. Her hands were shaking. Her vision had gone blurry at the edges. "Lieutenant," his voice in her ear was careful and worried. "Lieutenant, we need to leave, now." She could not respond. She could not move. She could only stare at the spot where her brother had been standing. Rarely used her first name, only in emergencies. "I saw your face just now. Whatever you think you saw, whatever is happening, we need to get out of here before someone notices us." His voice joined in, small and uncertain. "Lieutenant, are you okay? Your vital signs are going crazy. Your heart rate is through the roof." Finally found her voice. It came out rough and broken. "That was my brother." Silence on the communication channel. "Your brother died 7 years ago," said softly. "I read about it in your personnel file. The Bright Horizon colony ship. There was a memorial service." "He did not die." His voice was growing stronger now. The shock was fading, replaced by something else, something hard and determined. "He has been here, this whole time. For 7 years my brother has been a slave in space, and I am not leaving without him." She turned and began pushing through the crowd, following the direction the guards had taken the prisoners. She did not know what she was going to do. She did not have a plan. She only knew that her brother was alive, and she would burn down this entire station if that was what it took to bring him home. Behind her, she heard sigh heavily. He said, "Start tracking that mining consortium ship. Looks like our mission just changed." The next several hours passed like a fever dream for her. She moved through the crowded slave market without really seeing it. Her mind kept replaying the same image over and over again. Her brother's face. Those dark brown eyes looking at her from a body that had been changed to look alien. The desperation in his expression before the guards pushed him away. Grabbed her arm and pulled her into a quiet corner of the market, away from the noise and the crowds. Joined them a moment later, her small computer tablet already glowing with data. "The mining consortium ship is called the Profit Margin," reported. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen. "It is a bulk hauler that has been converted into a mobile labor camp. It moves slaves between asteroid mines all across the fringe sectors. Right now it is docked at level 7, but it is scheduled to leave in about 4 hours." "Then we have 4 hours," said. Her voice was flat and hard. "To do what exactly?" asked. He was not being cruel, he was being practical. "Lieutenant, I want to help you, I really do. But we need to think about this carefully. We cannot just storm that ship. There are 3 of us and probably 50 crew members on that vessel, not to mention the guards." "I know." and we cannot bid on your brother in the open market. We do not have enough money, and even if we did, it would blow our cover completely. They would wonder why human traders are so interested in buying one specific slave. I know. So what is the plan? Closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them again, the wild desperation had faded a little. She was thinking like a soldier again. Can you get me the layout of that ship? Entry points, security systems, crew rotations. Nodded. I can try. Their security is not great. Most of these fringe sector operations rely on fear rather than technology to keep their prisoners in line. Good, do it. Turn 2. I am not asking you to storm the ship with me. I am not asking you to risk your lives for my personal mission. All I am asking is for time. Give me 24 hours before you report back to Fleet Command. Frowned. And what happens after 24 hours? Either I will have my brother and we can all leave together, or I will be dead, and it will not matter anymore. The words hung in the air between them, looked uncomfortable. His frown deepened into something that might have been pain. You know I cannot let you do this alone, he said finally. This is not your problem. This is not your brother. No, but you are my commanding officer, and more than that, you are my friend. He crossed his thick arms over his chest. I did not sign up for the fleet to watch my friends die alone in some alien slave market. If you are going to do something stupid, you are going to do it with backup. Raised her hand like a student in a classroom. I am also coming, just so we are clear. Despite everything, felt a small smile tug at the corner of her mouth. You too are idiots. We learn from the best, replied. They spent the next 2 hours preparing, hacked into the station's information network and pulled up everything she could find about the profit margin. The ship was old and poorly maintained. Its security systems were basic. The crew was small, only about 30, plus another 20 guards who watched the slaves. The prisoners were kept in holding cells on the lowest deck of the ship. According to the manifest found, the profit margin currently held 312 slaves from a dozen different species. 40 of them were the that had seen on the auction platform. The cells use electronic locks, explained, showing them a diagram on her tablet. Old models. I can break them, but I will need to be physically connected to the ship's computer system. That means someone needs to get me to the bridge. That will be my job, said. I can handle the crew if they try to stop us. And I will go to the holding cells, said. Find, get him out. What about the other prisoners? Asked quietly. Hesitated. She had not thought about that. Her mind had been focused entirely on her brother, but was right. There were 300 other beings on that ship, beings who were just as trapped and desperate as. One problem at a time, said, but the question stayed in her mind, nagging at her. They waited until the profit margin began its departure preparations. In the chaos of crew members running around and systems being activated, it was easier to sneak aboard. Had found a maintenance hatch on the ship's underside that was not guarded. They entered there, crawling through narrow service tunnels that smelled like rust and old oil. The ship hummed around them as its engines powered up. They were running out of time. I am at the bridge access point, reported through their communication channel. Give me 5 minutes to get into their system. Copy that, replied. I have eyes on the main corridor, 2 guards patrolling. I can take them quietly if needed. Did not respond. She was already climbing down a ladder toward the lowest deck, where the prisoners were kept. The air grew colder as she descended. The lighting became dimmer. The sounds of the ship's engines faded into a low, constant vibration that she felt in her bones. She reached the bottom of the ladder and found herself in a long hallway lined with cells. The cells had bars made of the same neural-dampening metal as the chains she had seen in the market. Behind those bars, dozens of aliens sat or stood in silence. Their eyes followed her as she walked past. She found them in the cells at the end of the hallway, 40 of them just as the manifest had said. Their blue skin glowed dimly in the low light. Their patterns pulsed with slow, tired rhythms. And there, in the middle of the group, was. He saw her at the same moment she saw him. His eyes went wide. He pushed through the other and pressed himself against the bars of the cell. His voice was rough, like he had not used it in a long time. "Is it really you?" She reached through the bars and grabbed his hands. They were warm and familiar despite the blue tint of his skin. "It is me," she said. "I am here. I am getting you out." "No," his grip on her hands tightened. "No, you do not understand. You cannot just take me. You have to take all of them." She looked at the watching this exchange. They were not staring at her with fear or suspicion. They were staring at her with something like hope. "I can barely get one person out of here. There is no way I can rescue 40 aliens." "They are not just aliens." His voice cracked with emotion. "They are my family, and they are the only reason I am still alive." He pulled her closer to the bars, his modified face inches from hers. "Listen to me. I need to tell you what really happened to the bright horizon. I need to tell you where all 3,000 of us have been for the last 7 years. And when you hear the truth, you will understand why I cannot leave these people behind." Somewhere above them, an alarm began to wail. They had been discovered, but did not move. She stood there, holding her brother's hands through the bars of his cell, and listened as he began to speak. The alarm screamed through the ship like an angry animal. Red lights flashed in the hallway. Could hear shouting and footsteps somewhere above them. But she did not move. She kept her hands wrapped around his hands and listened to every word he said. The bright horizon did not just disappear, told her. His voice was urgent and fast. "We were attacked. 3 months into our journey, a raider fleet surrounded our ship. They had weapons we could not fight. They had technology we had never seen. They boarded us within an hour." Felt cold rage building in her chest. They attacked a civilian colony ship. They did not want to destroy us. They wanted to sell us. 3,000 humans all in one place. To them, we were just cargo, just profit. But the memorial service, they said there was no wreckage, no evidence of an attack. They are very good at hiding their crimes. They have been doing this for thousands of years. His grip tightened on her hands. "They took us to a slave market, just like the one where you found me. They were going to sell us to mining companies and factories across the galaxy. We would have spent the rest of our lives working in chains until we died." "Then how did you end up with the—" A new voice answered her question. It was deep and musical, like wind blowing through hollow wood. Looked up and saw one of the standing close behind. This one was taller than the others, with patterns on her skin that pulsed with a calm, steady light. "We bought them," they said. "My clan bought as many humans as we could afford, not as slaves, as refugees." Nodded. "This is Clan Mother Bora. She has been like a second mother to me for 7 years." Stared at thee in confusion. "I do not understand. They are isolationists. You want nothing to do with other species. Why would you spend your money saving humans?" Bora made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Do you know why we keep to ourselves, young human? It is not because we hate other species. It is because we have learned that most other species cannot be trusted. The galaxy is old and full of cruelty. Empires rise and fall. Species conquer each other and then are conquered in turn. We chose to stay out of it all. But when we saw what they were doing to your people," another spoke up, "we could not look away." 3,000 innocent beings, Bora continued. Families, children, elders, all being sold like animals. We did not have enough money to buy everyone, but we bought as many as we could. Nearly 2,000 humans joined our clans that day. Touched the faint blue tint of his skin. The modifications were Bora's idea, camouflage. They were still looking for the humans who had escaped their market. If we looked like, they would not recognize us. "We scattered the humans across dozens of worlds," Bora said. "We gave them new names and new identities. We taught them our language and our customs. We made them part of our families." looked around at the in the cell. They were all watching her now. Their patterns pulsed in similar rhythms, like heartbeats that had learned to beat together. "You saved them," she said slowly. "You saved my people." "They became our people," Bora replied simply. The alarm was still screaming. Herd's voice crackled through her communication channel. "Lieutenant, we have a problem up here. More guards than expected. Is working on the locks, but we need more time." "Keep them busy," replied. "I need a few more minutes." She turned back to, "If the saved you, if you were safe and hidden, then why are you here? Why are you in chains on a slave ship?" The light in his eyes dimmed. Around him, the patterns on all the seemed to grow darker as well. "6 months ago," he said quietly, "they found us." Bora stepped forward. Her voice was heavy with grief. They had been searching for the missing humans for years. When they finally discovered that we had hidden them, they sent raiders to our clan was one of the first they attacked. "They wanted the humans back," said. "They wanted to recapture their lost property and sell them again." His hands were shaking with anger now. "And did they hand you over?" "No," his voice broke on the word. "They refused, even when they threatened to destroy our entire settlement, even when they started killing people. They would not abandon us." Bora placed a gentle hand on shoulder. "They are our family now. You do not sell your family." "They took all of us," continued. "Humans and together. They did not care anymore. They were so angry that we had hidden for so long that they decided to punish everyone." Looked at the 40 beings in the cell, who had risked everything to save strangers from another species, who had chosen slavery rather than betray the humans they had come to love. "How many," she asked, "how many other humans are still out there, hidden among clans?" "Thousands, maybe all of them from the bright horizon." Eyes burned with fierce hope. "The survivors scattered across dozens of worlds. They have only found a few of us so far. The rest are still safe, still hidden, still living as part of families." The weight of this information was almost too much for her to bear. For 7 years, she had believed her brother was dead. For 7 years, humanity had mourned the passengers of the bright horizon. And all that time, those passengers had been alive. They had been rescued by aliens that most humans had never even met. They had been protected by a species that everyone thought was cold and distant. "I will not leave them behind," said firmly. "They saved my life. They gave me a new family when I thought I had lost everything. If I escape and they stay in chains, I could never live with myself." Understood. Of course she understood. She would feel the same way if their positions were reversed. "Then we save everyone," she said. The words came out of her mouth before she had time to think about them, before she had time to calculate the odds or make a plan. It was a promise, pure and simple, a promise that she had no idea how to keep. But when she looked at the hope in his eyes and the quiet gratitude in the faces of she knew that she would find a way, somehow. She said into her communication channel, "Change of plans. When you get into the ship's computer, I need you to unlock all the cells, not just everyone." There was a pause, then his voice came back filled with surprise. "All of them, Lieutenant, there are over 300 prisoners on this ship." "I know. And only 30 crew members." Smiled grimly, "I know that too." Another pause, then laughed softly. "Copy that, Lieutenant, all cells, give me 2 minutes." Somewhere above them the sounds of fighting broke out, had engaged the guards. The clock was ticking. Turned to Bora and the other. "When those doors open, there is going to be chaos. Can you fight?" Bora's patterns suddenly blazed bright blue. It was the first time had seen any of the glow so brightly since she had arrived on this ship. "Young human," Bora said, and there was something ancient and dangerous in her voice. "We have been warriors for 10,000 years. We chose peace, but we did not forget how to fight." The cell doors clicked, and then they swung open. What happened next on the Prophet margin would later become a legend. a story that would be told in bars and trading posts across the galaxy for years to come. The night when 300 slaves rose up against their captors and took control of a ship. But that was just the beginning. The fighting on the ship lasted only 20 minutes. The crew was completely unprepared for a full-scale revolt. They had grown lazy and confident after years of transporting broken, hopeless prisoners. They had forgotten that despair can turn to rage in a single moment. They had underestimated what beings with nothing left to lose are capable of doing. They led the charge. Bora and her clan swept through the corridors like a blue tidal wave. 10,000 years of warrior tradition had not faded from their blood. They moved with speed and precision that the guards could not match. Other species joined them. Tall, four-armed aliens who had been captured from mining colonies. Small furry creatures who had been stolen from their home planets. Beings of every shape and size, all united by one simple desire: freedom. By the time reached the bridge, the ship was already theirs. Lieutenant said, breathing hard from the fight, "What do we do now?" It was a good question. They had captured a slave ship in the middle of space. They had 300 freed prisoners with nowhere to go, and they were certain to be discovered soon. Looked at her brother, stood nearby with Bora and the other. His modified face was bruised from the fighting, but his eyes were bright and alive in a way she had not seen since they were children. "We cannot run," she said slowly, thinking out loud. "This ship is not fast enough to escape patrols, and even if we could escape, where would we go? The freed prisoners come from dozens of different worlds. Most of those worlds are controlled by species that do not care about slaves." "We could try to reach human space," suggested. "Fleet Command would have to help us then." "Would they?" Shook her head. "They are supposed to be neutral. We have been trying to convince them to become our allies against the hegemony. Do you really think Fleet Admiral is going to risk that alliance just to rescue some slaves?" The silence that followed told her that everyone agreed with her assessment. Politics. It always came down to politics. The lives of innocent beings weighed against treaties and alliances and diplomatic relationships. But then thought about something else. She thought about all the humans who had mourned the bright horizon, all the families who had lost loved ones, all the memorial services and prayers and tears. What would those people do if they found out the truth? Said suddenly, "Can you send a message from this ship? A broadcast that can reach human space?" Looked confused but nodded. "The profit margin has a long-range communication array. It is not powerful, but I can boost the signal." "Why?" "I want you to send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them everything. The Bright Horizon attack, the rescue, the slave trade, everything we have learned." Frowned. "Lieutenant, Fleet Command will bury that information. They will classify it and lock it away to protect their negotiations with the... That is why we are not only sending it to Fleet Command." Eyes were hard and determined. "We are broadcasting it to everyone. Every human ship, station, and outpost within 50 light years. We are putting it on the public network where anyone can see it." Stepped forward. "If you do that, they will know we are here. They will send ships to capture us." "Let them come." Turned to face him. "For 7 years they have been kidnapping and selling humans. For 7 years they have been lying to us while pretending to be neutral. It is time the galaxy learned what they really are." She looked around at the freed prisoners watching her, and humans and a dozen other species, all waiting to see what would happen next. "And it is time humanity learned what they did for us. They saved our people when no one else would. They protected us for 7 years. They chose chains rather than betray us. The galaxy needs to know about that too." Bora made a soft sound of surprise. "You would tell your people about us, about what we did?" "I would tell everyone." There was a long moment of silence. Then Bora's patterns blazed bright, brighter than had ever seen them. "Do it," the clan mother said. Got to work. Within an hour the message was sent. It flew through space at the speed of light, carrying the truth about the bright horizon, the slave trade, and the who had sacrificed everything to save human lives. The response was unlike anything had imagined. Within 6 hours, 17 civilian vessels had changed course toward space. Merchant ships whose crews had lost family on the bright horizon. Passenger liners filled with people who wanted to help. Research vessels commanded by scientists who refused to stand by and do nothing. Within 12 hours, the number had grown to 40, then 100. None of them were military ships. Fleet Command had not authorized any official response yet, but that did not matter. Individual humans were making their own choice. They were flying toward danger not because they were ordered to, but because they had learned that their people needed help. "This is incredible," whispered, watching the tracking display fill with more and more signals. "They are coming from everywhere." But that was not all. Pointed at the display, "Lieutenant, look at this. Those signals are not human." He was right. 2 new signals had appeared on the edge of the display. They were moving fast, faster than any human ship could travel, and their identification codes were definitely not human. They were warships. "They must have heard the broadcast," said. His voice was filled with wonder. "They are coming to help their people." Within 24 hours, the situation around Station Meridian had completely transformed. 37 human vessels had gathered in a loose formation around the station. 2 warships had joined them, their weapons powered up and ready, and more ships were arriving every hour. They were shocked. They had never seen anything like this. They had been a major power in the galaxy for 6,000 years. They had always looked down on younger species like humans. They had believed they could do whatever they wanted without consequences. They were wrong. The official diplomatic protests from Fleet Command arrived eventually. Carefully worded statements expressing concern about the situation. Requests for all parties to remain calm and avoid escalation. But the message from humanity was already clear. It was written in the hulls of the ships surrounding the station. It was spoken in the voices of the crews who had traveled across space to be here. "We do not abandon our own. And we do not forget those who helped us." Standing on the bridge of the profit margin, watching more ships arrive, finally allowed herself to believe that this might actually work. "What do we do now?" asked. Looked at her team, at her brother, at Bora and the who had become his family, at the hundreds of freed prisoners who were watching her with hope in their eyes. "Now," she said, "we wait, and we let them see exactly what humanity does when someone hurts our people." Outside the viewport, another human ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel and joined the growing fleet. The reckoning was coming. The negotiations lasted 3 weeks. 3 weeks of messages going back and forth between human diplomats and officials. 3 weeks of threats and demands and counter-demands. 3 weeks of the growing fleet around Station Meridian as more ships arrived every day. They tried every trick they knew. They claimed the attack on the bright horizon was the work of criminals, not the Dominion itself. They argued that slavery was part of their ancient culture and outsiders had no right to judge them. They threatened economic punishment against any human company that did business in space. They warned that their military could destroy the human fleet if pushed too far. None of it worked. Fleet Admiral explained the situation during one of their many communication calls. The Admiral was an older woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had spent 40 years climbing the ranks of Fleet Command, and she had seen many strange situations, but nothing quite like this. "They do not understand what is happening," Admiral said. "They have been a major power for 6,000 years. They have never had to take a younger species seriously. To them, humans are children playing at being adults." "And now," asked. "Now they are learning." The Admiral's face showed a small, hard smile. "Do you know what scared them most about your broadcast? It was not the military ships that came. It was the civilian ships, the merchants and researchers and ordinary people who dropped everything to fly into danger. They have never seen a species that responds like that. The had noticed the same thing. Clan Mother Bora had been spending much of her time on the communication systems, talking with other ships and colonies. The news of what had happened was spreading through her species like fire. For 10,000 years, they had kept to themselves. They had watched other species fight and betray each other, and they had chosen to stay out of it all. But now they were seeing something different. They were seeing a young species that formed bonds quickly and fiercely, a species that fought for those bonds with everything they had, a species that repaid kindness with overwhelming loyalty. "You are very strange creatures," Bora told one evening. They were standing together on the observation deck of the Prophet Margin, watching the lights of the gathered fleet shine against the darkness of space. "We thought your emotional intensity was weakness. We thought it made you easy to manipulate and control. We were very wrong." "We thought your species was cold and distant," replied. "We thought you did not care about anyone except yourselves. We were wrong too." Bora made the sound that had learned was laughter. "Perhaps our species are not so different after all. We simply show our love in different ways." In the end, they surrendered. Not because they feared humanity's military power. The human fleet around the station was mostly civilian ships. If they had truly wanted to fight, they could have one. But they feared something else. They feared what humanity represented, a species that inspired loyalty, a species that repaid kindness with fierce protection, a species that other powers might start to see as a better ally than the ancient, tired Dominion. The terms of the surrender were simple. Every human prisoner in space would be released. Every who had been captured while protecting humans would be released. They would pay compensation to all the families who had suffered. And the slave trade that had operated in the fringe sectors for centuries would be shut down forever. 2,743 humans were freed. People from the bright horizon who had spent 7 years living among them. People who had learned to speak a new language and follow new customs. People who had almost forgotten what it felt like to be called human. The reunions were incredible to watch. Saw elderly parents meet children they had thought were dead. She saw brothers and sisters embrace for the first time in 7 years. She saw tears of joy streaming down faces that had known only grief for so long. Stood beside her through all of it. His family had chosen to stay with him, Bora and the others who had been captured together. They had been offered the chance to return to there, but they had refused. "You are our family now," Bora had said simply. "We will not leave you." The Inhumans who had lived together for 7 years formed a new community. They called themselves the Bridge Clan, a name that honored their unique position between two species. They settled on a small colony world near the border of human and space, a place where both cultures could grow together. And the galaxy watched as humanity and signed the Meridian Accords, the first true alliance between humans and another species, not built on politics or economics or military advantage, built on a simple shared belief that those who stand together in chains should stand together in freedom. 6 months later, Lieutenant Park stood on the observation deck of a brand new ship. The UFSV Chainbreaker, they had named it, a joint human vessel designed to patrol the fringe sectors and make sure that what happened to the bright horizon would never happen again. Stood beside her. He had chosen to keep some of his modifications. The faint blue tint to his skin remained, a reminder, he said, of the family that had saved him. "Command wants me to join the diplomatic corps," he told her. His eyes were fixed on the stars streaming past the viewport. "Apparently being raised by makes me uniquely qualified for talking to other species. Are you going to do it?" He was quiet for a long moment. "There was a girl in our clan. Her name was. She was born on the bright horizon just a few months before it was attacked. She grew up thinking she was. She did not even know she was human until she was 5 years old." Waited. She had learned that sometimes the best thing to do was simply listen. Was 16 when the raid at our settlement continued. His voice was heavy with old grief. She did not make it off the planet. She died protecting the younger children, giving them time to escape. I am sorry. She deserved better. All of them deserved better. Finally turned to look at his sister. So yes, I am going to join the diplomatic corps. Someone has to make sure this never happens again. Someone has to build bridges between species so that no one ever has to choose between their birth family and their chosen family. Through the viewport, a cruiser glided past. Its hull was marked with the new symbol of the Human Alliance. Two circles linked together, one blue and one silver, representing two species joined by something stronger than treaties. Joined by love, by sacrifice, by the chains they had broken together. Reached out and took her brother's hand. His skin was warm despite its blue color. He was alive. He was here. After 7 years of grief, he was finally home. That sounds like a very human thing to do, she said. Smiled. It was the first real smile she had seen from him since they were children. Maybe, he replied, or maybe it is a very thing to do. Maybe that is the point. Maybe the best parts of both our species are the same. Behind them, a notification chimed. A distress signal from somewhere in the fringe sectors. Another ship in trouble. Another group of beings who needed help. Squeezed her brother's hand one more time. Then she turned and walked toward the bridge, ready to answer the call. Because that was what the chainbreakers did. That was what humanity did. They heard the cries of those in chains, and they came. Always. No matter what.